Hey guys, so I just want to give you a heads up that we did in fact have a horrible audio malfunction this episode. We had some issues with our microphone audio, which has now caused us to have to use the camera audio. So this episode is going to sound a lot different than normal. But Anna and I decided we still wanted to put the episode out because we thought it was funny and a good conversation. So I, of course, am going to still recommend you listen, but I just want to give you a heads up. It is going to sound a lot different. So just try to give it a chance. All right.
What the fuck? I forgot to pull up the thing. Why? Why? Oh, don't even start with your runny ass nose.
A few moments later.
Oh, hold on. It's really funny.
12 seconds later.
Dun, 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 dun. It's stuck in my head.
Later.
Wipe your face. What? How does this look? By the way. No? How does what look? It's all the thing I complain about every time I edit. I think it looks good. Oh, that doesn't say a lot because I feel like you tell me that and then I still look like a fucking person.
I tell you it's fine, and then you're like, God damn it.
I think you do it on purpose.
I do not.
You do.
Mm-mm.
Because you're like, I'm the pretty one, so
okay.
Good. Did you get it to work?
No.
What the fuck?
It's not me!
20 minutes later.
You will know she's a master manipulator. Just so you're aware, Anna's grandparents, I do not bully her. She's a master manipulator.
I have tears in my eyes because I was laughing. And I'm just sniffling because allergies. But she's mean to me.
I'm fixing to be mean to you. I'm fixing to be mean to you.
1 minute, 37 seconds later.
Why can't I log into fucking Instagram?
I don't know, mate.
10 seconds later.
I think that I have like a real career in like nothing. Nothing.
I'm about to lose my shit. Doo-dah, doo-dah. I'm about to lose my shit. Oh, doo-da-day.
So, is it that you're like technologically challenged?
No! I hit the fucking login button and it won't. You do it.
If I do it, you're gonna literally eat it.
Hit the login button. Hit it. Nothing happens.
Much later.
How do we start?
Help.
I need somebody. And then you say,
Help. I don't know.
not just anybody.
I don't know. Okay.
Help.
You
I
guys
need
don't.
someone. Help. Oh, it's just a laugh.
For all your tears.
She's so mean to me. Okay, just tuck that back there.
Once again, we're starting off the episode going through it. We should change the podcast to going through it instead of why are you yelling?
That could be a good name for our movie analysis review, whatever we talked about again.
Going through it?
Going through it. Because we're going through it, and we're also going through it. So, I was like, how do we start? What are we talking about? I hit my foot, and you wouldn't let me talk about it till we got on camera.
What are we currently?
What?
We're live.
Oh, no, not yet. I have to tell my story.
What?
Because the intro. Roll the intro.
Okay, tell me about your foot. I'm sorry if I was mistrustful and thinking the story could potentially be, a little teensy long. So I didn't think it was I figured it wouldn't be an intro story.
Don't tell the story yet. It's gonna take too long. Okay, well. No, don't want to tell the story.
That is not what I said.
So I hit my foot today. I was running. I was running around my apartment trying to get ready because we said to be here at 10:30, and I was going to be here at 10:30, and I tried really hard to get here at 10:30, and it did not happen. But I was running around my apartment getting ready, and then I was running out of my bathroom to go put my clothes on, and I hit my foot like under my door, on the bottom of my door. Like it wasn't quite, I didn't like run into the door. It was more like I almost got caught underneath the door. Yeah.
Johnny Depp's famous words. Hold on. How are your toes? You remember he said that?
No, I don't.
No.
I don't get that reference. But yeah, so I whacked my foot. It was like one of those, you whack it and then you're like stunned momentarily, and then you just like collapse on my bed. I was gonna be on the floor, but I just like collapsed on my bed holding my foot.
You
like,
were going to be on the floor?
Well, my bed was right there, so
okay.
It was a shorter distance down.
You were like, walk and fall.
But yeah, then I'm like holding my toes, like, because it's the only thing you can do when you stub your toes. You kind of just gotta like hold it and just like ride through the pain. The toe.
One toe?
Well, the toes.
Multiple toes?
The foot. The
Hold
toes. She made me cry.
Oh, here we go again. Moral of the story is that she hit her foot.
I didn't. It hurt really bad.
Are you crying because you get PTSD from it?
Yeah. This is like ugly laughing. You gotta get me in this.
Don't look at her.
Don't look at me.
So today, while she was crying about her toes, I malfunctioned too with my eyeliner, and that made me very angry. So that's my whole story. I had to redo my whole left eye. It still looked like shit. I didn't collapse or anything though. I just used a lot of concealer, and then I was like, it's ugly. And of course, it's this side of my face that shows mostly on camera. Have you recovered?
I think so. Is my makeup all fucked up?
No, it's fine.
Okay, I apologize. I'm back.
Now joining us.
I'm Anna.
Are we live? Are we what?
I don't know.
What the fuck?
I thought we rolled an intro already.
I don't know. And guess what? What are we? Say it! I'm Jessica. You're a fucking psycho.
I know. It's gonna be a long one today, guys.
No, it's not. It sure isn't.
It may not be long in time, but it's gonna be long.
It's gonna wait. Where'd it go?
Oh my eyes.
It's gonna be 45 minutes long. We're at 41.
I'm fucking up my eyeliner now. All of it's gone.
Not all of it.
Okay. Some of it's just washed down my face.
Oh, well,
What the fuck just happened? Was that a fever dream?
I don't know.
Let's talk about Hitler.
That'll make sense later.
I'm immaculately conceived.
I don't know what to do.
I swear I'm not stupid.
Take it or leave it. Sometimes you just want to leave it.
If I gotta borrow my mom's underwear, I'm borrowing her underwear.
You just, yeah?
Misa likes the Jar Jar Binks.
I'm not gonna edit it out.
Oh no.
I don't know, like I think I was pretty great. Just staying on the
Sucks to
planet.
suck.
Why are you saying it with a question mark?
Clap, bitch.
All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
And we're live. 15 minutes in.
Somebody please come help me. I'm Jessica,
I'm Anna.
and this is Why Are You Hysterically Laughing? Not yelling, why are you
I
fucking
don't know. I'm on one today. I'm on something.
something?
So,
It's just our energy. It's just hysterical.
so I hit my foot. You ruined your eyeliner.
Yeah.
And tried to fix it, and it's still not happy.
No, we changed our angles a bit, a little bit farther out, and I have cramps. And then I saw something. This leads me to my gross thing I was telling you I wanted to mention to you if you heard about. So gross. I apologize. I'm actually not sorry. If you're a man and you get grossed out by periods, you need to grow the fuck up. So, and if you're a girl that gets grossed out by periods, I mean, that's different because, like, they're ours and we can be grossed out by them. But
It's not the function that's gross.
yeah.
It's the massacre you have to clean up that's like, ugh.
It's like, so these girls are like, first I saw videos where people were like, I like to gaslight my ovaries into thinking that the period's over by like those last few days, just not like where
That's so funny.
and they said I'm gaslighting myself into thinking it's over with. And then
And it's not.
it's not, but then you're just like, yes, it is. But then the people, they started to say, guys, and this makes no sense to me. So this is not me like saying that you should do this or shouldn't or whatever. It doesn't make any sense. People were like, ever since I started free bleeding, my periods went from lasting 6 days to 3. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Free bleeding? Girl,
You just,
what's the difference between that and a pad?
nothing.
But I'm saying what,
Yeah.
functionality wise, like, why would it be any different?
I think it's either for attention
Oh, well, the
or they're trying to make some sort of statement about something.
Is this the new free the nipple? Free
Kind
bleeding?
of. But see, my thing with free bleeding is like, you do you. But like,
What do you get
As
from
l-
something?
that's as long as you can contain it to your own body, like your own clothing, whatever, okay. But as soon as it's the possibility of transferring from like you onto a seat or like you onto somebody else or something else, like especially in public places, like that's no.
That's what.
Because it's not like
It's still a bodily fluid.
exactly. It's the same to me as if you were to like spit on like a seat or spit on somebody or like, you know, it's just weird. Or
Bro. Yeah.
it is blood. I mean, it's blood in like your uterine lining and whatnot.
Yeah,
but it's still blood. So it's the same as if you were to just have like a big cut on your arm or your leg.
The
and you're just,
scientists are coming for us.
I don't give a
It's slightly
shit.
different, but yes.
no, it's not. It's still, you're bleeding everywhere. Like that's public safety and health
Yeah, it's
issue.
gross.
You can't just be bleeding everywhere.
I'm stuck on my periods went from 6 days to 3. Why? Is this the placebo effect or
Uh-huh.
are you gaslighting your uterus? So anyway, I just thought that was really fucking weird. That's one of the first things I saw this morning, and I have cramps, so I'm like... And then I was thinking, like, I would literally never do that in my whole life.
I mean, it's just a lot to clean up and then get the stains out. But I guess if they're free bleeding, they're not concerned about stains getting them out of clothes and stuff.
You would think that they should be.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Again,
Yeah.
it's for attention or some sort of statement they're trying to make, which, as long as you're containing your statement to yourself and not getting your period blood everywhere and all over, like, public seats and stuff.
Yeah, that's fucking gross. That is gross.
I mean, and obviously it is different if it happens on accident. You
Well,
know,
yeah,
if you're not aware and then all of a sudden you're just bleeding everywhere. You can't control that. But when it's a conscious choice, like that's...
Well, there's also a difference between like day 1 and day 2 or 3. You know, it's quite a different situation you've got.
That's true.
Like day 2 and 3, run.
There's sharks in the water.
It's scary.
So speaking of menstrual cycles and periods
And hormones.
and all of the above, so that leads me into there's now a potential new option for male birth control, which
Maybe like
yeah. So as of right now, the only viable, I guess, forms of birth control, there are obviously barrier methods. And that's really the only 2 methods men have of birth control are barrier methods, which would be like condoms, or abstinence, right? Like that's kind of it. That's the only 2 options.
That's all you've got.
As for women, we've got different types of either ingestibles or injectables.
Why are you doing this?
Because
Are you doing it for attention?
I'm different. I'm not like other girls. So, you know, you've got your shots and your implants and your traditional like hormonal pill birth control. there's, there's barrier methods for women too. So there's like diaphragms and stuff like that. But I mean, other than the diaphragm, all other methods.
That's what that's called?
Yeah. The barrier that you stick inside you.
That's
like
a diaphragm?
I think so, is it not?
Is it a diaphragm, like something up here?
Well, yes, it's also like a muscle in your body that helps you breathe. But yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called a diaphragm.
I really hope it is.
I hope so. If not, pardon me.
If not, I'm gonna bleep it. I like you cussed.
It's called a bleep. She's in a bad word. But all of other than the female barrier form of birth control, of contraception, all the other types of birth control for women have pretty severe side effects, or can, right? So just talking about like there's hormonal and non-hormonal. So there's, certain IUDs, like the copper IUD, that's non-hormonal. But then you have the hormonal ones, which can really fuck you all the way up. Like it can lead to like hair loss. It can really fuck up your like face in terms of like acne and stuff. It can, it just can cause like severe mood swings, weight gain, stuff like that, right? It can also like permanently affect your actual like cycle in terms of like how heavy or not heavy it is, right? I mean, there's certain forms of female birth control that can cause you to not be able to have children if you take it for long enough. So that's like some pretty severe side effects. But then even like, you're like, okay, well, maybe you don't go the hormonal route. Maybe you go the non-hormonal, like an IUD or like the copper IUD or something. But even with IUDs, I've heard horror stories because they don't put you under any sort of anesthesia. You don't get for the most part, you don't get any sort of localized pain meds. Most doctors don't. It's pretty rare that you find a doctor that will. But you have to go into the doctor to get it inserted. And they just stick that bitch up in you like nothing. Like it's just in, right? And then I've heard horror stories of women having severe cramping, can't move, like severe pain, can barely drive home after they get it inserted, and super heavy periods or some women are like, I bled for like a month or 2 months straight, heavy, like that can lead to anemia and other health problems because you're free bleeding. So, women go through a lot to be able to not have children when they want to have sex, right? And so they are testing or have done tests on mice, a new form of male birth control.
This has been going on a while though, right? Because I feel like we've always heard about these male birth controls over the years, and they're like, they cause cramps, and we're like, doesn't cause cramps. Oh, poor thing.
But this is the first one that they've seen some sort of, I guess, viability. So apparently there were, let's read through an article. Excuse me. There you go. So apparently they're reading through an article, and these scientists were actually studying whatever is the main component in this new form of male birth control. They were studying it for like different purposes. They were actually looking at it for something to do with the eyes. And so they were studying it, and then they noticed when they were testing it on mice that it stopped the motility of the sperm in the mice, meaning that the sperm just stopped moving. So they might like wiggle or something like in place. They can like twitch, I guess, kind of in place, but they stopped being able to like and like swim. But it was temporary side effect. And so not temporary side effect. It was just a temporary effect of whatever that chemical was that they were, or compound, whatever they were studying. And so now they're like, I guess, going to the next stage of developing it as a form of male birth control. And so it would be a pill that a man could take about like 30 minutes or so before he wants to like bounce it, go out. And what it does is temporarily would make the sperm not move. So basically they don't swim. And so it lasts for, I think they said about 2 hours. But then after that, you go back to normal. Like there's no other like sort of side effect in terms of like making you infertile, or like the sperm they can start moving again. So I guess it temporarily like paralyzes the sperm.
Bro, that's legit.
Right?
Hey, you wouldn't have to take it every day?
Mm-hmm. Only 30 minutes before you need to.
That?
Mm-hmm. But they did say, and I would have to do a little more reading into it. I read in the article where they said that the sperm, after about 1.5 to 2 hours, they do become mobile again, whether it's inside the female or not inside the female. So I'm like, that presents a little bit of like because sperm can live for about 3 days, up to 3 days inside of
Fuckers.
Yeah.
Bastards.
So I'm like, that would, you know, I'd need to read more into that to be like, okay, how exactly does this work? In terms of like, what happens when they wake up? Where they go? Get to the egg! Go! It's like in Wizard of Oz, they're running through the poppy fields, and then all of a sudden, they feel sleepy and they fall down, and then eventually they get back up.
Sperm are like,
go. So, I'm just now visualizing like sperm in poppy fields.
well, I'm thinking of a Rick and Morty episode that they had that was ridiculous. It was like fucking monster sperm trying to get to this, and they ended up making like a monster egg, and it was actually really, what we just described is basically what happened. Like of them, all the sperm running to it was so fucking stupid. Yeah, with birth control though, people are like, I know everybody has like their own reaction to it. Like for me, it was something that really helped with like periods and not being so heavy. It helped me be way more like, I guess, on a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, really helped with the severity of my periods because like when I was younger, it was just like miserable. It was so horrible. And it helped with my acne. So like it made it not be as severe, which I mean, I think there's so many different types, you know, there's like low estrogen or like normal or sometimes high. I mean, it just really depends on, there's just so many different brands. And it's just one of those things that you're just like, oh, you get on this one or that one.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's just like that game of what might work for you. But even then there's just some people it doesn't mesh well with, and there could be long-term side effects you don't know about. So, you know, you get there and you're like, well, that sucks.
Yeah, I mean, the whole concept of, so the onus of preventing birth being on the woman, like that's her primary responsibility, just doesn't sit right with me. In terms of like, I don't know why more I do know why, but like more hasn't been done sooner to put a little more of the responsibility of not getting people pregnant onto the men, right? Because if you think about it, a woman can get pregnant one time in a year. She can get pregnant once in a year, give birth to one child in a span of 9 months, right? A man can get in 1 year, if he only has sex, unprotected, one time a day with a different woman every day, he could get 365 women pregnant.
Genghis Khan, baby.
In a year, right? And so why are we putting the responsibility of not getting people pregnant primarily on the women? And the reason I say putting the responsibility primarily on them is because there's not many other methods provided to men to be able to prevent it. They've got abstinence and they've got condoms. That's what they can do to prevent getting a woman pregnant.
Yeah.
Right? Women can...
Or they can go get...
snip, snip.
Which, I mean, it's not always just a snip. They have the one where it's not snip, but it's like tied?
Oh.
Because it's reversible.
Well, the vasectomy for men can often... It is reversible. I don't know in terms of like the percentage-wise of how many of them are able to be fertile or...
Because there's the snip.
Or not fertile, but how many of them have the opportunity, like...
Yeah.
So, well, when you talk about women, usually it's women get their tubes tied and men get vasectomies.
But I think with vasectomies, there's the ones that are like, it's snip, done, and I think they have the ability with that to be like, it's temporary. Like I feel like I saw where someone was talking about.
Well, I think even if you snip it, it can like reconnect back.
Yeah.
There was a comedian, I forget who it was, but they made a joke about how there's this one athlete, I forget if he was like an NFL player or an NBA player, but basically he had like 10 kids or something like that.
Kenneth?
No, he's not an athlete. He had like
in child producing children. He is.
He's Olympian,
yes.
baby. But he had like 10 kids, got a vasectomy, and after the vasectomy had twins. And so they made a joke about how his sperm were like Mario Kart and that shit, like Rainbow Road, just like You know, he got it snipped. But so the responsibility of not getting pregnant being on women, it doesn't sit right with me that it so heavily relies on women. And there's the fact that there's so many different options you would think is a good thing, which I mean, it kind of is. But the fact that there's so few options in comparison for men, it disturbs me that it's not taken more seriously or hasn't been developed more. And I know that that's because of our whole society and the way that it's structured and the way we view women and sexuality and men versus sexuality and all that jazz, right? But then even going a step further of if a man wants a vasectomy, I don't know that he has to jump through all the same hoops that a woman has to jump through to get her tubes tied or to get a hysterectomy. Because most women, from what I understand, if a doctor is going to tie your tubes or perform a full hysterectomy, you have to meet certain criteria, such as being over the age of 25, be married, and have had at least 2 children. And then, like, basically they want your, like, husband's approval to do it.
Is that everywhere, or is that just, like, in certain places?
I
like
don't know.
Or something?
No, I mean,
that sounds like some Mississippi shit.
I feel like, though, that, I don't know, because tying your tubes, you can undo it for women.
Yeah, I wonder if that's, like, a heavier procedure. I'm sure. I wonder if it's just more invasive.
But then I'm like, is it covered under insurance, like other forms of contraception? And if so, why not? Because while, yes, it may be a little more involved in terms of like the procedure being done, is it that much more expensive, like in the long term? Like in terms of have this one-time procedure, you know, get it tied, get your tubes tied, whatever, prevent being able to give birth. And then maybe if you want to get them untied, you pay for it or something. Because my thought process being, if your insurance can cover this one-time procedure, you go in, get them tied, it's going to be so much less expensive when you don't have a child that is then covered by your insurance. Or like your insurance having to pay for, you know, you being pregnant and all the prenatal stuff and then the actual birth and the delivery and whatnot. Like, I don't know. Logically, it just makes sense to me that would be the case. But
I do think that, like, I would say, I do think that hormonal birth control doesn't just serve the purpose of not getting pregnant. It does serve a lot of other purposes. Like, for me, I got on it very young because I had such horrible, and I don't really care about all the holistic people coming for me right now. I was 15 years old. It was a decision my doctor and my grandma and we all make, so it was my grandma all the time. And it was one of those things that it was, like, life-changing in a positive way because, like, I couldn't go to school sometimes because it was so bad. And I definitely had a lot of acne back then. And that wasn't why I got on it, but it did help. I mean, I was one of those people that I got on it, and it was okay. And I wouldn't say I noticed any weight gain or anything like that. I know, like, the depot shots, those seem to have, like, severe, like, weight gain side effects. And I know, I know, too, like, with, like, or I'm not saying I know, but, like, I think, too, like, with women, our ovaries, and it's such an area that's, like, it's so hormonal, and it's something that could affect us so much. That's, like, maybe another reason so much more research has been done into that, because, like, I don't know how much, like, semen has to do with, like, the male situation when it comes to, like, I guess the function of, like, their hormones and how it affects them. So I'm like, I feel that is very unfair. Why did God do this? Okay, let's dive into it. So I agree. I think that is a very good point. So, like, women being able to produce children and to, you know, grow a baby inside of them and give birth and all that is so closely tied to their hormones and their hormonal production. It's so tightly linked together because obviously growing a life inside of you takes a lot. Like, that's a whole situation, right? But then, like, how closely tied are male hormones to their ability to get people, not just their ability to get women pregnant, but their ability, like, does it affect every other aspect of their life in the same way or to the same degree? Because, like,
whether I'm pregnant or not pregnant, my body's going through it all the time in terms of like hormones, right? They're just because of the cycle, it's always fluctuating. It's up and down and left and right and diagonal and sideways and all kinds of shit, right? So, I mean, it affects the way that you look. It affects the way that you feel in terms of like your physical energy levels. I mean, and then on top of like the other physical side effects, like of, you know, your acne or like bloating or like, I don't know, even like, just so many different things that it affects and your mood, and your mood is fully controlled by your hormones, which can get out of whack sometimes, or, you know, it just, your day to day as a woman is so highly affected by whether you are pregnant or not. Because even if you know, you can be on this sort of like up and down roller coaster throughout the course of your cycle, but then even if you do get pregnant, that so drastically affects your body too. Like some women, like the baby, let me tell you something. Fetuses
Here we go.
are little parasites.
Yep.
That's not that's not to say I'm anti-children. I have a niece. She's 2 years old and she is adorable and I love her to death. But like fetuses, they are parasites. They cannot grow out away from their host. They're fully dependent on the host that they're living inside of. And they're little leeches. They are, because when pregnant women, like they can, they don't tell you about this before you get pregnant, but you can lose your teeth because babies suck all the nutrients that they need to grow. They take from you. So like when women take prenatal vitamins and they have to eat more food and put on like some extra weight when they get pregnant, usually they put on like 20 to 30 pounds is a pretty healthy range when you're pregnant. All that stuff, it's not for the baby, it's for you.
Yeah.
Because the baby is sucking all the life out of you. It's sucking all the calories so it can grow. It's sucking all the vitamins and minerals it needs to grow.
This is a baby-hating podcast.
Babies are vampires, the little vampire leech parasites. But I mean, it's true because there's a lot of pregnant women who will like lose their teeth because the baby sucks all the calcium out of them and their teeth will like start to fall out.
So rude.
And I mean, they get teeth problems or like, I mean, it's just a lot that even when you're pregnant, you are still going through it and so fully controlled by your hormones.
You asked why God did this. I'm going to answer it in the only positive way I could imagine.
Okay.
Because women could handle it. A man couldn't.
But is this a chicken before the egg situation?
This is just me trying to gaslight us ourselves into just saying it's because we're better.
Are women created to be more equipped to handle all of it, or have they adapted to be able to handle it?
If we're going the God way, I would say created.
Okay.
If we're going like
Evolution.
Science, I would say we just adapted. I would say we just had to, or we just evolved that way.
I mean, because really, if you think about it, like, how did cave women survive?
Well, a lot of them probably didn't.
But enough of them had to that we have now 8 billion people on the earth. Help! I need somebody.
Darwin's like, you guys can't keep everybody alive, survival of the fittest.
Well, I mean, that's why you have so many people that are like blind, not blind, but like can't see without corrective lenses. Been watching The Walking Dead recently. This is relevant. And I listened to a podcast that it's called The Watching Dead. It's by Bald Move. And so they basically they break down and do an analysis of every episode and everything. And one of the things they talked about, one of the episodes was like, how far would you survive into the zombie apocalypse if you require like contacts or glasses to be able to see?
Oh, I'd be okay. You would die, would you?
I would die immediately.
Oh.
Like, as long as I have some sort of corrective lens, I'm good. But like without any glasses, like as long as I got glasses and I got like backup pairs, or we can hit up, you know, I feel like not many people would be raiding like pharmacies and drugstores for like the reader type glasses. As long as I got something that helps me see a little bit better, I should be okay.
Mm-hmm.
But I like
gaslight your eyes into just fixing themselves.
Yeah, but like I'm definitely not the person to go out hunting or whatever. Like if I lose all my corrective lenses,
I'm making a joke about it because you're coming.
But no, literally, like that's my contribution to the group. But so yeah, they were talking about how I can cook and clean. I can cook, I can clean.
The opposite.
Yes. But like I would be like the natural sort of like group den mother situation of like being able to do that, because I can't go out and fight. I can't go out and hunt. I can maybe collect firewood and stuff, But like even then, somebody got to come with me because I can't see shit. I can see about
You know what they use you
here
for?
in front of my
It's gonna
face.
sound so bad. You want to know?
Bait.
No.
Oh.
I would say you'd be like a reproductive person. People would use you so we can reproduce the population.
Ew.
Just saying, if I can't say that, you gotta be useful somehow.
I'll rear the children, but I don't
You'll what?
rear them.
What's that mean?
Child rearing, it's raising.
Just say raise then.
Sorry.
Rearing. That sounds like a term that you'd use for like a cattle dog. Because they're rearing the sheep. Get them together.
That's herding.
Herding. Rearing. They're rough from the rear end. I don't know.
But yeah, so basically,
Babies are parasites.
and I would not survive a zombie apocalypse very far unless I just make sure I got people around me that need me for something other than giving birth. Because no. But yeah, so I think that women should be able to get their tubes tied or hysterectomies earlier in life if they want to.
Yeah.
I would really like to do me in terms of do what I want.
Oh yeah. I want to do what I want. I'm too poor for that. I'm sitting here talking about like birth control and periods, and my own ovaries right now are like, fuck you for not getting pregnant. And I'm like, sorry.
Are they saying fuck you, or are they having like a fiesta? They're like, are they like?
It could be either. It might be that.
It's like a club.
Yeah, that's a way to look at it, ladies. Your ovaries aren't punishing you for not getting pregnant. They're celebrating inside of you, and you just suffer.
They're having
But
a
they're
rave.
happy.
You're like the person that lives next door to like a club or a bar, and then just all night it's just
Yeah, and you're just like,
and you're like, oh my god, I can't sleep.
well, I'm like the landlord.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the landlord. I just see everybody else partying, and I'm just like,
You own the club, but you don't run it, and you just like live above it in your apartment. You're like, I hate my life.
So you had another thing that really interests me though, because
Yes.
this kind of goes on what, like we talked about something similar-ish before. We were talking about mouths.
Yes, if you have not listened to that episode, it was before we turned it to a video podcast, but we have an audio-only episode. Go listen on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts. I forget the episode number, but it's basically, it's the one where we talk about Nazis and Mouse, the book that was banned in Tennessee. And that was a really good conversation. It was a long one, but it was a really good one. So I saw this thing, memento, por favor.
And she showed a funny thing. She sent this to me, and I apparently, you sent it to me, and then like
Instagram.
on Instagram, but then you also sent me a reel, so I hadn't checked it yet. So when I checked my messages,
It was 5 hours later. 5 hours later.
So I responded to the reel, and then responded to her sending me this, going, I want to talk about the podcast, and I was like, oops. But then we looked at it yesterday, and I was like, and she made me be quiet the whole time.
Yes,
I
I was like,
anything.
did you see? You never responded, and she's like, oh, I'm sorry, and she read it, and then I knew she was gonna have stuff to say, and I almost didn't send it to you, but I'm like, no, I want her to be a little bit prepared just for us to have this conversation. So, because sometimes we just like to spring stuff on each other. It's fun. So I was on Instagram scrolling, as one does, and I came across a post by Roka. I've talked about them before. And they are basically a platform. They have a newsletter, and then they're on Instagram, and they're beta testing an app right now. But basically, they are a news something company, I guess. But basically, it's called Ride the News is their handle. But basically, they like to provide snapshots that are unbiased, that are just giving you straight facts and a little bit of context. For some pretty, basically the big headlines of the day in terms of the news.
I found another person like that, by the way. I'm just going to plug them super fast, called The Free Press.
Mm-hmm.
Very similar. They used to be called Common Sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now they're called The Free Press, and they're doing that podcast I told you about called The Witch Trials of J.K. Rowling.
Oh, okay.
So they have a whole thing like that too, where, it's very much like getting back to they're trying to help people trust journalism again, because they're like, right now you just can't.
Yeah.
So.
But so Roka does a thing where it's, they do like a Roka wrap. And so it's a little bit more of like a deep dive into a particular topic that may not have made like the bigger news headline for that day or something. And so they do a little more deep dive. And this one, it's called Sensitivity or Censorship. And so... So I'm going to read kind of the context of what they said, and then we're going to discuss it.
Yeah.
So it was a series of 10 slides. So it is sensitivity or censorship Two of the most popular writers in history are having their books revised. One is Ian Fleming, who wrote the James Bond series, and the other is Roald Dahl, who is a children's book author. He's written really popular titles that everyone knows, like James and the Giant Peach, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
All the Tim Burton movies.
Yeah. And so they're, I guess the publishers that own the rights to these books and stuff are now going back and starting to like rewrite them and revise them. So about 2 weeks ago, and this...
you know what? They were like, well, a king revised the Bible once, so we can revise these.
Facts, no printer. So about 2-3 weeks ago, news emerged that Puffin, which publishes Roald Dahl's books, had hired a sensitivity team to rewrite sections of the book. Among the changes they were going to make were references to characters' weight, their intelligence, and their gender would be dropped or reworded. All the new books would feature a disclaimer, quote, "This book was written many years ago, and so we regularly review the language to ensure that it can continue to be enjoyed by all today," end quote. Yet within days, intense backlash forced a reversal. The publisher said, so this would have been like a week or two ago, that after, quote, listening to the debate, it had decided to release 2 sets of the books, one that was unchanged and one that was more, quote, inclusive. Within 3 days, though, the Sunday Telegraph, which I assume is a newspaper or news website, reported similar changes being made to James Bond, a spy series of which Ian Fleming wrote 14 installments, which, I mean, everyone knows James Bond. They spawned several movies and whatnot over the decades. The organization that owns the books says the edits are as, quote, close to the original text and period, end quote, as possible, but will change content deemed, quote, offensive to modern readers, end quote. Some of the reported changes include, so like the original, describing black gold miners, quote, "They're pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought, except when they've drunk too much." So the new version would be, "They're pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought." And then another example would be the original. "During a striptease at a Harlem nightclub, Bond could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough." And the new version would be, "Bond could sense the electric tension in the room." Which I have thoughts on that. So, but let me get through these last couple. The new versions also omit some racial slurs, but not all. They don't omit slurs for Asian people or Bond's mocking description of Oddjob, a Korean character. So, quote, "blithering women doing a, quote, man's work," and references to homosexuality as a, quote, disability are also reportedly being kept. Which is odd. The company that owns James Bond hasn't said if it will keep the originals, as with Dahl's books, or whether they will be discontinued for good. And then they asked the question, like, what do you think about the changes going on? So, do you want to give your thoughts first? Initial thoughts.
So my initial thoughts are, it's so fucking stupid. And you're a fucking pussy. It's literally ridiculous. It makes zero fucking sense. Sensitivity, like, it's written in a certain time period. That's how you also learn how things used to be. You look at a piece of literature, you read it, you see the language, you see also the time period the author was from, what was going on when they were alive. It's all, like, all of that is a learning experience. Mm-hmm. That's what they're for. So it's just like, you read these things as they are, and it's like, it's historical. Mm-hmm. That's ridiculous. It's completely and utterly ridiculous. Sensitivity? Who the fuck is that sensitive that they honestly can't read a book and just know that this is the past? Why do you want to wash away the past? So people don't think that's the thing too. Quit trying to alter how things used to be. People used to be way more homophobic and sexist and racist, and it's a fucking fact. That's just how it was. Quit trying to act like it wasn't. So if those things are in those books, let them be there so we can all recognize that's how it used to be. Because the second you erase anything like that, it's, what is it, like, history? It'll just repeat itself. So it's like, stop trying to act like things for modern readers. What the fuck? It's so ridiculous, and it's pandering, and it's pretentious, and it's self-serving. Like, nobody has asked you to do that. Not one person with a fucking brain has asked you to change these books. You're just trying to figure out, what can I do to be inclusive? What does that even mean? So are you adding characters to the books to be inclusive? Because you would need to start including the things that were excluded before. So who are you including? To be more inclusive, it literally means nothing. It's all self-serving. So you can be like puffin, you're just trying to be relevant, and it's so fucking tone deaf. It's the same fucking, it's just fucking dumb. All of it is so stupid. If it offends you, good. Things that should offend you because it means you're not like that. If you read something from years ago that you're like, that's fucked up, good, because it was supposed to.
Because then we have done our job as a society.
We've progressed.
Yes, exactly.
It shows how we've changed as a society. It's a positive thing to be able to see change. So why are you trying to alter the past to look like now when it's not? It's fucking stupid. Hey, next thing, let's go in textbooks and act like slavery didn't happen. We'll act like we didn't steal the United States of America from, the Native Americans, and we didn't persecute them and kill all of them. And let's just do all that too.
Let's just deny the Holocaust where we're at it.
Because sensitivity training, that doesn't hurt. It's not good for modern people to know.
I think that, one, it's trying to sanitize the past in a way that serves no one. No. Sanitizing things. And we talk about this more in our Nazi Holocaust episode, where we go into that. But the title's something about the mice being naked or something. Yes, basically, there's a way to teach certain aspects of history and society and human culture. There's a way to teach those things at age-appropriate levels. And that's different than full-on sanitizing and erasing parts of history in the past that have happened. Yeah. Right? And I know that these are fictional books. These are not real events that have happened. But the books existing and the language that they used are indicative of the writers and the time periods that they were living in. Right? Yeah. And so I think that there is a difference between teaching things at an age-appropriate level where children and young people can understand and contextualize, and sanitizing the past, which is not good at all for anybody. I think that I am a very big First Amendment proponent. I went to school for journalism. At my heart, I am very much like a journalist. I'm a journalist inside.
She identifies as a journalist.
I sure do. And I think that, we have to fiercely protect our right to say and express ourselves. Yeah. Obviously, as long as it's not infringing on anyone else's rights. And so I think that I agree with you that it is performative, it is pandering, it is infantilizing. Because one, people that are reading these books are not young children. In terms of James Bond, for instance, young children aren't seeking out James Bond. That's not the type of literature they are seeking out. And if they are seeking it out, then I would think that there is someone guiding them to it, like a parent or a grandparent or an adult figure in their life that can help provide them with the proper context. Yeah. Look, I loved these books when I was a kid. There's a couple things in here that, there's certain terms or things that are in here that aren't right to say or do. If you have questions or if you don't understand, we can talk about it. And, you give it context, right? That's the job of a parent. Or, you shouldn't just let your kids read whatever they want. Although we were reading whatever we wanted on.
But it's also why
do
people assume though that children and pre-teens or teenagers, why do we all assume they're so stupid that they can't understand this is a book and this is fiction? I understand children are impressionable, but it's do you really think that it's fucking stupid?
Well, I think that we have to make sure that we are distinguishing between children and young adults. So, they should be treated differently, and that's where the age appropriate sort of thing comes in terms of teaching and reading and whatnot. But I think that yes, with younger children, when they're at the stage of where they're really into reading, I would say it's probably between, and they're reading books like these, chapter books. They're 8 years old, 7, 8,
maybe, if they even like reading.
Yeah. And so 7, 8 years old, they know the difference between reality and fiction. But then it's just making sure that what they're reading and consuming, that they understand, I guess, that certain things are okay and not okay. And usually with children's books, that's made very clear. Usually if you're a children's author the bad guy is the bad guy, and it's very intentionally written that way. It's kind of like overly ham-fisted to make sure it's very clear, because children obviously cannot analyze to that depth the nuances of like a morally gray character or whatever. So I think that I agree that especially like teenagers, they're not dumb. They know the difference between right and wrong. Yeah, are they making questionable decisions sometimes? Sure. But like at the end of the day, like some of these things are not like, they know better. They know they're socially aware.
It's also like they're trying to like rewrite these books to get rid of language that was just used. It's like, it's just weird. It's just bizarre. It's like, I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand like what the actual end all goal is for making sure it's good for modern readers. Like, what? Like, you think there's literally no point besides look at us trying to be hip.
And I guess I don't understand, or no, I do understand. I don't agree with, like you said, the concept of like making it for modern readers can enjoy it. I mean, yes, the publisher is doing it probably to make more money because they think, oh, more people. But I don't think more people are reading James and the Giant Peach, or
preach. Ain't nobody reading it.
Or James Bond or Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. I don't think more people are reading that. I don't think modern audiences are going to seek that out again unless they have somebody sort of pushing them toward that. Because I mean, even there's a reason like the classics are the classics. I mean, I would consider Charlie and the Chocolate Factory to be a classic children's book, right? Mm-hmm. I don't think people in everyday life are seeking that out. I think that it's parents encouraging their children to read the classics, or it's through school, right? Yeah. The reason I read the majority of the classic literature I have read is because of school.
Yeah.
I think that being able to appeal to modern audiences, I mean, are you doing it so that your books won't be banned from like public, or like not public libraries, but like school libraries? Is that the thing behind it? Because you want to make sure that, because they are, To Kill a Mockingbird, or Catcher in the Rye, or Flowers in the Attic, there's a lot of moral panic, I guess, around books in children's and school libraries. So maybe it's, we need to make some of these changes so that they have a more modern version and they don't get rid of our book and they still buy it and still read it, maybe.
I mean, if that's the point, then it's like, the company that's like, they're basically going to have one version that they feel is like sanitized, but they're keeping the original. I suppose that's a compromise. If the purpose is where you're concerned about it being banned from schools, then okay, maybe I could understand it a little bit more, but then I just go into like schools are just a bunch of fucking pussies.
Yeah.
It's just ridiculous the amount of like, it is censorship, and it is just ridiculous. It's so stupid. It's so dumb.
Yeah, I think that
like Romeo and Juliet killed themselves, bro. But you're worried about the fucking word grunt and shit and pig. That's a big deal. But like Romeo and Juliet literally killed themselves.
Yeah. So that was so going back to like the examples that they gave of like the changes they would make to the James Bond books. I think that, and they say that for James Bond in particular, the organization that owns the book says they want to make the edits as close to the original text and period as possible, but will change content deemed offensive to modern readers. I think that there's some of the changes that they suggested, like describing the black gold miners, quote, "They're pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought, except when they've drunk too much." Then they change it to, "They're pretty law-abiding chaps, I should have thought." Okay, I mean, I get that removes a racial stereotype. So, okay, yeah, fine enough. It removes a little bit of context,
because he's saying that they're law-abiding except if they've drunk too much, I should have thought, or whatever. Yeah. But now you're saying, oh, they should have been okay, I thought. But you're not implying the reason why they could not be anymore?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's a stereotype of describing black gold miners as okay, except when they drink, and then when they drink, they become not law-abiding. So, I mean...
That's just people, dog.
I know. So I'm like, I guess it does remove an element of a racial stereotype there, but then what it also takes away is your understanding of the main character having that and believing in that racial stereotype.
Yeah, like,
unless they're like making a joke.
Like they're supposed to be
Or
fun.
trying to.
Yeah, like I've never read this. I don't know the full context of that. Like I don't know what that whole page looks like, so I don't really know like the other situation around it. So I'm just like, I feel like it's just like what?
Yeah, and then another change they said, which I fully disagree with this one. The original, during a striptease at a Harlem nightclub, Bond could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough. Then the new version would be Bond could sense the electric tension in the room.
It's ridiculous.
That's a terrible change. That's a terrible edit. It makes absolutely no sense to make that change because the original is not offensive to anyone.
No, they're fucking.
No, he's during a striptease at a Harlem nightclub. He's saying you could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough. So there's a striptease, basically like a stripper on stage. So they're panting and grunting because they're either, pleasuring themselves or because, but I mean, the description of the men, they're pigs. He's talking about men that are ogling these women, sexualizing them, whatever. Like,
are they trying to imply that because it's Harlem that it's a racial thing?
I don't know.
Because Harlem is like, back in the day, isn't that like...
Yeah.
It wasn't predominantly black?
Yes, it was. And so, the Harlem Renaissance.
Are they trying to imply that the author was describing the black men there as pigs rather, and that's a racial thing rather than he was just describing the fact that they were men acting like pigs, and they're taking it that step further to say, is that what they're trying to imply?
Maybe. That would be the only reason I could think they would change it,
which is still reaching, which is still like, you're taking, the fact is he was trying to say the place is dirty, the place is like kind of gross, they're acting like pigs, is eccentric, is that what they said?
No, that Bond could sense the electric tension in the room.
That implies it's like not nearly as the first paragraph. I'm thinking he's walking into like kind of maybe like a gross place. In the second paragraph, I'm like, oh, he's walking into like
a classy joint.
Yeah. So I'm like, what?
Yeah. So, I mean...
Wait, did they also take away the striptease part?
No, so during the striptease at a Harlem nightclub is just setting the context, and the quote that they're actually changing. Okay. The quote that gets changed is, Bond could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough, and they change it to Bond could sense the electric tension in the room. I think that takes away, no pun intended, so much color from the scene.
Oh, for sure. And isn't Bond like kind of a classy man?
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be like this debonair, worldly sort of spy.
So you would think that he's a classy guy. He's walking in, all these guys are masturbating, being gross as fuck, pleasuring themselves.
And even if they're not pleasuring themselves,
they're still like,
yeah.
They're fucking like gross to him.
They're still
it's letting the audience know he's looking down on this place because, in a way, you could say, because he's like, ew, I'm classier than this shit. And the second one, he's almost like, his perception and perspective of the room is different.
Mm-hmm.
This place is so cool.
Yeah.
Like, it's so, like you said, it's taking away the main character's viewpoint and their own opinions and how they look at people. Like, and
that changes the way the audience views the scene, because it goes from being this sort of like, and again, we do not have the full page, the full context for that scene, but I, just reading this part, can envision like, he walks into a room, and what it's saying is that it is sexual, but in a gross, objective sort of way, like sexually objectifying way.
Yeah.
And, it's men lusting after women, and it's like that sort of thing, versus like the second way the change that they're making, it's more like sensual. It's a little more like acceptable, I guess. And yeah, it changes your perception and it changes your perception of like the room that he's walking into, or like what he's observing.
100%, it's ridiculous.
And I mean, this comes back to like words mean things. That's why there's good writing and bad writing. That's why when you use certain words, they imply certain things to the reader versus other things. When you say, Bond could hear the audience panting and grunting like pigs at the trough, in my head, that paints a very different picture than Bond could sense the electric tension in the room. It's also like a more boring sentence.
It's very boring.
It's bland. It's sanitized.
It is. It's boring as fuck. It's just ridiculous. It's so stupid. God damn, it's so just pathetic that we've come to this place of just like, we just assume that people are so sensitive at this point that we're offended on the behalf of people before they even, just because.
Mm-hmm.
Just because we're like, oh, well, that must offend, so this must be offensive. Who the fuck is talking about that? What the fuck are you talking about?
But like also, again, and so these are like classic books. The classics are the classics for a reason. The publishers who own the rights to these books, I mean, the reason you own these classics is because you know they're going to continue to make money. Now, if you've noticed a decline in sales, then maybe you need to do something different. You put out a different cover. Maybe you start marketing a little bit, some of the classics a little differently. But I mean, at the end of the day, classics tend to market themselves a lot. So maybe it's, you need to look at your model differently in terms of like, maybe you were relying on bookstores, like physical bookstores, when that's really not the way to go anymore,
Yeah.
So maybe you look at the model and the way you're marketing or selling these things. I don't know. I mean, I think that people are going to seek out the classics regardless.
It's also like, me and you talked about this one day, because I was talking about when I was in elementary school, there was this book series that was basically the Odyssey, but it was rewritten for kids. Do that if you need a new audience. Don't get rid of the classic, leave it alone. But if you want to rewrite it so you get the main story across of like, James Bond is doing his thing. Kids love spy shit. So of course they would want to read that. But just rewrite it and create these chapter books like people did back in the day, like for the Odyssey. They rewrote those. So they were for children. So then when you're older, you'll probably have more interest in the classic to begin with because you've read these child versions of them. Like that.
I mean, I think that I don't even necessarily agree to a certain extent with rewriting things for different people.
Yeah.
I mean, to a certain extent. The Odyssey, I think, is a little different because the Odyssey and the Iliad started as oral stories that were told, and then someone transcribed them and wrote them down, and then that's how they've been, translated and passed down or whatever.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think something that started as an oral tradition, it lends itself more to being told and rewritten for different audiences. Because you're going to tell a story like an epic, like the Odyssey or the Iliad, you're going to tell that to an adult differently than you would a child. So to me, that makes sense. But then like, if you're looking at like James Bond is a character, what he stands for, what he does, how he operates, all of his stories are written for adults to read. Not everything is for everyone. It is not meant to be consumed by everyone. So if you want to have a spy series that's for children, write a fucking different
008.
Yeah, really, write a fucking different series, a spy series for children, like Harriet and the Spy, or like.
I mean, even if you want to take something inspired by, it's just dumb as fuck. And I will say too, the Iliad and the Odyssey, that shit is rough to read, even as an adult. So sometimes I'm like, girl, what? So it's like, it's just so fucking pretentious and so stupid and self-serving, and there's nothing about it that. Whatever. It's so fucking pathetic. It just is gross and makes me angry.
And you can also just like, again, if it comes back to, we haven't been selling as many like of the James Bond books. Well, you own the publishing rights. Do you own the right to write more versions of that? So like, I would compare it to, and I know this is a different situation, but like the Nancy Drew character and series. The original series was written under a pen name of Carolyn Keene. And so that was many different authors basically ghostwriting under that pen name. And so they continue, outside of the original like 50, 60 something books, they continued to create different like Nancy Drew series set in modern times too. Yeah. So, I can read the originals, and I loved them when I was, about 10, 11, 12 years old. I devoured those books. But then, I have read the more modern updated series too as I got older. So, I mean, I think that you can also, and I don't know what rights they have and all that, if they have the right to do that with that character and stuff. But I mean, that's another way that you can take this character, what they stand for in the originals, and transplant that into a more updated, modern sort of setting and scenario. And then you can use different language that isn't as offensive. And you can write it, but you can still, the problem with trying to rewrite or sanitize the original work is that there's the way that where the story is set, like for this one in Harlem, and the characters that are there. So then there's the one character with the Korean, the one James Bond with the Korean character, like the characters and the setting can't be changed because that changes the entire story. That changes the whole book.
Yeah.
So
even just the language that they're using, that people, like you said, how people used to talk and how people used to write, like it
changes it too much. Just write a new book at that point.
Yeah.
Like if it because the setting and the characters and the time it was written, the language that's used, it is set up that offensive things are going to appear on the page, offensive by modern standards, right? So it's engineered and put together to be that way. So just going through and like, oh, we can change a couple things here and there. Like, no, it's still inherently set up. Like even the fact that we're like, okay, there's a striptease at a Harlem nightclub, and you're like, oh, well, is there a racial component to when they're saying the men in the audience are like pigs and they're grunting? It's like, is there a racial component? And that's why they're changing it, because it's implying that Black people are like pigs. And it's like, I mean, it could be, but the only way to keep that language but remove that implication would be to set it not in Harlem. But then again, if that's a major plot point of the book, that they're set in Harlem, they're set in a major, like, a city that is predominantly black characters, a community, that sets a tone.
So now you're trying to get rid of the Black people in the book.
For real. Like, you're trying to, like, make everything, you're trying to cleanse. And it's just weird. And I don't like that.
It's so gross. Like, it's just pathetic. It's like, y'all...
Just write a new story.
Yeah.
Just write it new.
I mean, shouldn't they be going into the damn public domain anyway? Like, Sherlock has entered public domain. When all these be going public domain, people are going to try 007 books. But...
When does that happen?
I don't know.
When? Hold on, I'm Googling it. When James Bond be public domain? Okay, so the Bond books, written solely by Ian Fleming, are public domain in countries that recognize a 50-year posthumous copyright term, so like Canada and Australia. Fleming died in 1964, so in countries which recognize a 70-year term, like the UK and the US, they will be public domain after the end of 2034.
Okay. And whoever has the rights to do whatever. I mean, they make James Bond movies, so I mean, clearly somebody's letting that happen.
Yes,
so.
And again, that's a perfect example of you take a character created and written way back when.
Yeah.
You keep some of the core components of who that character is and how they operate and what they do. And then you just set it in a modern time and you update the character and the story to reflect that. And they've done that great, I think, with the James Bond movies. There's obviously some of the original movies that are based solely on the books.
Yeah.
And then you've got like the Daniel Craig James Bond.
Yeah, video games, all that shit. I mean, dude.
So yeah, I mean, I think that going back and sanitizing these things is just the wrong move. I don't agree. I think it's dumb.
It's just a waste of energy, and no one's asking for it.
Pandering.
Yeah, it's just like, get more fucking creative, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for fuck's sake. But on that note, it's time to end it.
So long, farewell to you, my friends. Goodbye for now until we meet again. That's all I'm gonna say.
That's it. Well, that's it, guys. So, man, get on birth control and go buy 007 before they fucking get rid of it.
Yeah.
And all the other things that the James and the Giant Peach.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, make sure you grab all those before they decide to rewrite them all, and because they're a bunch of fucking pussies.
Wait, so they're removing references to characters' weight. So does that mean that Violet is not going to be plump?
What the fuck? That's the... What if she turned into? So what?
A blueberry.
That's the whole point, is that she turns into a blueberry. The point is she turns into a blueberry, not that she gets fat. Because she literally turns into... I'm done. So what is the little boy... And that's how the little boy got stuck in the thing, because he was fat.
Yes. What was his name?
I don't know, he ate chocolate. But like,
yes, fell into the chocolate river.
So what's going to happen?
And he got stuck in the tubes.
So that's how he got stuck. Like, he can't be skinny and get stuck in there.
Yeah.
What the fuck?
It just ruins everything.
I'm sick of it.
Okay, this is for real. Goodbye.
Don't be ugly, dumb, or stupid, guys. We'll catch you next week. Peace out. Bye.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button and to click the notification bell so you don't miss any future uploads. We'll catch you next week. And remember, don't be ugly, dumb, or stupid.